We just heard you talk about the evolution of what a story and a book is, and how it has evolved from, as you said, us standing with a little book with text and what it can become. You, of course, have explored a lot in this. But as we see it in Wonderbook today, books doesn't necessarily just have to be you sitting down with a book and reading. It can also be you exploring physically. Is this what you thought it was going to be?
You know, the reality is that Wonderbook is exciting to me because it is a marker of sort of the third aspect of the future that really we hadn't seen before. I mean, one thing was expanding the notion of a page to include audio and video, and that we've seen. Another was that a book becomes a place where people start to congregate, and that happens when books go online into dynamic networks. The third aspect of of your body becoming part of the equation. You know, ever since books, I think, humans, intellectuals, have lived in their minds. And there's been this mind-body split. And in a lot of ways, what many of us have talked about, but none of us had ever seen really until, I think for me, until Wonderbook, was the possibility of the mind and body going back together. You know, the McLuhan, who talks a lot about, you know, a return to oral culture, one of the great things, one of my favorite things about Wonderbook was that I have to speak words out loud, you know, and I was, you know, there I was in what was essentially what felt like a book and reading experience, but I was using my body in a way that I never had before. And that is a huge difference. And yes, we have imagined this, but we've never seen it before now.
I was sitting there thinking, where, I mean, it's not because we have to put limits down to categorize what reading a book is, but when I think of reading a book, it's me, you know, just sitting down and read a really good book, and I just start to see pictures. Now we have this 3D space where you can interact with the book, but where does it cross from being a book to become something else? And is that...
Well, here's the thing. As soon as you figure out what the word is for something else, we'll start to use that. But, you know, people always say to me, when I first started publishing films and called them, you know, an extension of the book because of the way we were publishing them, people said, well, why are you using the word book? And then when I started the Institute for the Future of the Book and we're doing all kinds of experiments that didn't look to people like traditional books, people would say, why do you keep using that word? And the answer I always give is, give me another one. You know, and I think, and I'm not just being funny, the fact that we don't have a word yet means that we're not yet at a place where the modes of expression have really started to gel. Right, we're experimenting, right? These are all experiments, and when we get, you know, the vocabulary follows experience, and if you don't have the vocabulary yet, it means that you don't have an experience yet that's powerful enough to generate a new vocabulary.
Talking about this, though, again, I keep going back to this, but what I used to know as a book, you're kind of like transforming it right now. From your eyes, from your perspective, a book, should that be transformable by the reader itself? I mean, should a book be a certain experience, of course, interpreted by the reader, but should the reader be able to add to this experience themselves?
Like, you know, my 89-year-old mother reads only on her iPad. And it's not her eyes. Her eyes are perfect. She reads on her iPad because she likes the fact that there's a dictionary, and she likes that she can Google from within the book. I have no problem saying that that's a book. right? So it's a slippery slope, right? I mean, start adding features. It's okay to add them. You know, that's why I worked so hard to sort of change the definition of a book to at first to being a vehicle for moving ideas around time and space, and then for a book being a place, because it's a lot easier right now to change the definition of a book than it is to start drawing sharp boundaries on each new possible thing. You know, I don't actually want to spend any time trying to figure out if Wonderbook is a book or not. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, is it a game? Is it a book? It's to me that's not that important. You know, I'd argue that the only reason we call games games and not books is because they grew up outside of the culture of books, and they weren't allowed in a lot of ways to use that word. And it's why the game industry is exciting. You know, it's not weighed down by the past. Not just the vocabulary of expression, but the vocabulary of the word used to define it. On the other hand, books, as we know them, are now an outmoded medium. It's not, when I say outmoded, I don't mean they have no value. What I mean is they don't have the energy that they used to have, the creative energy, right?
Why is that?
Because we have new, you know, what Salman Rushdie, okay, an important, you know, said a year ago that he would not write any more novels. He was only going to write for television. You know, because he realized that a 13-hour television series that extended over 5 years, so 65 hours, gave him much more freedom to develop complexity of character and of plot. So the challenge was bigger. And I would argue that for, you know, some, you know, young kid in secondary school today, the creative problems presented by something like Wonderbook are going to be way more interesting than the creative problems of a 2D picture book. I'm not saying one is better than the other, but I'm saying that there's a, you know, there was an article yesterday I read something about the fact that the human creativity likes obstacles. You know, the obstacles are a spur to creativity. And so when you have a new medium and you have to learn a lot of stuff from scratch, it becomes a very fertile ground for creativity. And I think that's why, you know, I think that's why the energy is moving away from, moved out of poetry to the novel. The novels turned out to be more exciting for the author than poetry. In the main, it doesn't mean we don't have any poets. And there's a good chance that somebody will still write a novel 20 years from now. But it's not going to be where the action is.
So I started out with a really wide question. I realized that. And I'm going to end this interview with just as wide a question. What is the next step? Because if 3D space and exploration, physical exploration of a book is what we're approaching now, is there any other steps you would like to see the media take?
Well, first of all, I don't expect to see that for a while. Okay, I mean, you know, if we could have the 3D stuff, I mean, what they actually showed there, you know, in the promo video, that's a long time away. You know, my guess is, I mean, I think we're going to have several parallel tracks of development. You know, Wonderbook is going to be putting the body back into the equation. Social book is going to start putting people together in the margin. These things aren't going to meet up for 10, 15 years. It may be a little faster, but what is it? So the printing press is perfected in Germany in 1454. It isn't until 40 years later that we even see page numbers. Right? It takes humans a while to wrap their heads around potential, right? And so, Pong was 1976, right? I mean, so that's 34. It's almost 50. Right? 40 years. 40 years. And so we see where it's gone in 40 years. It's still on a screen, right? We didn't jump the screen yet. We're almost there, I think, and wonder, and the thing is, of course, we've had with Wii and with all the different systems, the body's been back there, but Wonderbook has done two things that are different. One is it's linked it directly back to the book in a way that I think gets people thinking about how the book is going to evolve. But the other thing I think it's done is that there's something about the way that you see yourself on the page in Wonderbook that is very different than simply moving your body to make things happen. You're also seeing the results of your body moving, but as your body, and that's so I suddenly actually could see myself walking with my daughter through a museum in London, even though she's in London and I'm in New York.
Okay. Thank you very much.